Alrighty, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. The focus for today's lesson is going to be on understanding text features. Text features are really more prominent in nonfiction. However, you do see some instances of them within fictional text as well, but for the purpose of the next unit, which is going to be on informational text and nonfiction for this 9 weeks, we're mainly just going to be focusing on that genre. So starting off, you can see a few examples listed up here: headings, photographs, titles, captions, and illustrations. But we're going to be uncovering why we use these and how effective it is for your understanding of the text as we go forward with it. So as always, I want you to go ahead and copy everything that is in red. Be sure to put this in your own words as well. That way you're not just copying it verbatim, but you get a better understanding putting it in your own words. So a text feature, in this case just a feature, is an important part of something. You can talk about like facial features, like the way someone's nose is, or the way someone has facial hair, or eyes. Or you can talk about more physical features such as arms, legs, whatever the case may be. And so it's used in different contexts. But look at this coral reef right here. You can start to think about some of the features as far as the texture you can see of it, the different vibrant colors, different types of organisms you can see, such as anemone, rock, coral, water, sand, and so on and so forth. So it's different parts, different aspects of what makes up this collective whole. And so your facial features may include eyes, nose, mouth, chin, cheeks, whether you have piercings, eye color, or maybe you are older, maybe you're younger, different parts of you, and again, tying back in with features. We'll skip that. So text features in this case are parts of the text that draw your attention to important information. A text isn't just simply all put together in Times New Roman 12 with the same font and the same colors and the same style. Authors choose to break up different aspects of their work using different text features. That way it can really draw your information, draw your attention to it. So first off, we have titles. Titles are pretty much that. They tell you what the work is mostly about, mainly given the most prominent appearance on a book. With your books, you can typically see like huge fonts or very vibrant colors that really draw your attention to the title of the work. And so you can look at the title of your 30 book challenge book or whatever book you may have around you. Think about how they're written, what type of font they're used. Are they long? Are they short? Are there subtitles? Now, subtitles being smaller blurbs of information, such as like Talladega Nights. That would be the title of the movie, and then The Ballad of Ricky Bobby would be the subtitle there, just to give you a little bit more of a clue into what the movie may be about. So when you're reading text like this, I want you to try to find the title of the article. I'll give you about 5 seconds on this. Okay, so your title would be right here. As you can see where my mouse is, very top here, the Conservatory at Longwood Gardens would be your subtitle, but the main title would be A Garden Under Glass. Headings are not exactly like subtitles in that they're featured within the text themselves. They introduce topics, and they're written in bold print, large print, or some type of colorful text. That way it can just draw your attention to it immediately. So when you're reading this work, you can kind of see how the different headings are split up. Right here, Drooling Dragons and Spitting Salamanders, the Indoor Children's Garden, Step into the Desert, and Lush Forest of Palms. And you can somewhat make a guess of what those sections may be about just based on those headings alone. It may require a little bit more comprehensive reading there, but you kind of get an idea of where this is leading and why the author may choose to do this. And we'll cover more like text structure later on this week or possibly next week. So look through the books you have. Try to find any headings that you may see in there too. You're mainly going to see this with your nonfiction books. Fiction books, I would consider those more like chapters, will be the headings in this case. But for nonfiction, you can think of different sections, different layouts, the way it is. Is it in bold print? Is it only one word? Is it a question that the author is presenting to you, or is it more based on phrases? Your bold print and italic print. Bold print is darker or brighter than the rest of the sentence. As you can see up here, how this is a little bit more shaded in compared to the rest of the sentence. And authors use bold print to signal important information or new words. Again, the point of having all these different text features is to draw your attention to it. So if the author wants you to start considering what a word may mean in the context, they may make it bold compared to everything else. You may see this in your textbooks. So think back to when you're using a textbook in Miss Howe or Miss Fry's class, how when you're reading the book, you just come across that one phrase, and you're like, okay, so this is obviously very important because it's a lot more darker. Your italic print looks like this. Kind of see how it's kind of slanted compared to everything else. It's used to signal important words, ideas, or foreign words too. So by foreign words, start thinking words like how you categorize animals. When you categorize animals, which is called taxonomy, you can see how the words are italicized, maybe the first word may be capitalized, but it's used to just signal words that the author's like, okay, hey, you need to pay attention to this. So as you're going through this article here, let's try to find some of the italicized words that are present. I'll give you about 5 seconds on that. Okay, so one italicized word up here would be painted turtles have special adaptations. Adaptations being the key word for this. And so the author wants you to understand that this is an important word in context of the rest of the article, which would be about the painted turtle. Another one would be down here too, with hatchlings. Now let's try to find some bold print words. And again, it works in the same way here, to where it's really trying to give you vocab words for you to find. So one example would be here. In early spring on rainy days, the salamanders migrate from their forest homes. Male salamanders are kind of amphibians. So if you may not know what those words mean, you can always refer back to it, and you usually find these in the glossary in the back of the book. Now try to find some bold and italicized print in your own books, and again, mainly for nonfiction. Illustrations and photographs, you probably are very well aware of this, especially if you read a lot of picture books when you were growing up. But illustrations are drawings. They're created by an artist. So they can be very basic, like stick figures, or just like a very bare bones basic chart. Or they can be very detailed, such as the cover of the books you have. So when you look at your book, if it's a fiction book especially, you may have someone who's an artist render a drawing there just to give you a clue into what's maybe within the story. Photographs are actually taken by photographers. They're not illustrated drawings. They are depicting real-life settings and real-life objects. So let's think here. How does the photograph help the reader, which would be you, understand this text? So if you're reading a text like this about an old schoolhouse, you can see this photograph right here, and it can kind of clue you in into how the house is looking. It looks a little bit dilapidated, it looks rotten, it looks old, it looks abandoned, and that can help you when you're trying to read the rest of this text here. And in your books, you can think about the photographs that are present, and especially in biographies and autobiographies. Now, in biographies and autobiographies, you typically have your photographs either within different sections or all together in like 2 to 3 shiny pages within the center of the book. Now, you got to think about why the author included this. How does it help you understand the main point? And what can you learn from this photograph? So think back to say a biography of the Wright brothers. So why would you have a photograph of the Wright brothers when they were young? Why would you have a photograph of them with their first flight? Why would you have it when they traveled to Europe to advertise the first airplane? And you can kind of get where I'm going with this as far as trying to understand why an author may give you some sort of visual with it. That way you can picture it in your mind. Illustrations work in the same way. They help you understand ideas. And so going back to the schoolhouse, we saw from the previous selection how it looked all dilapidated and run down. But if you're trying to think about what it looked like back in the past, where it was such a more prominent feature within towns and schoolyards and whatnot, you kind of see this this illustration here that shows you how it may look like if it was brand new. You see like a nice sturdy roof up here. Maybe this was set during the winter time because you can see the trees having no leaves. It looks a little condensed in, almost like lacking space. So you can kind of imagine when this would be taking place, probably the 17th or 18th century. And especially with even more detailed drawings like this. So this illustration helps you understand how they used stoves to keep warm during the winter time, and just the structure of it, how it's elongated, how you put in the coal through here, how the smoke is getting out through here, the sturdiness of it with its 3 legs, and even a pail here just so you can have an additional item in there. So I want you to go ahead and try to find some illustrations in your book too, just to help you out. Think about why the author is using this. The style of the illustration, so we kind of tie in with author's style later on, although my enrichment group, you do know what I'm talking about with author's style and author's purpose. So is it like appealing, like is there a lot of care put into the drawing, or is it just thrown together at the last minute just to give you just a brief visual? And then what can you learn from the illustration? Like, how does that tie in with the information that you know? Captions are found underneath illustrations photograph. They pretty much tell you what's in the picture. So the caption here, so you have a vernal pool in Pennsylvania. So this is a straight up photograph of what a vernal pool may be. But this is just more of a description of it for you as well. So with the pictures and the illustrations in your books, I want you to try to find any captions that you have in there and try to think about how they're written. Are they long? Are they short? Is there a lot of fancy language put in there? Or is it just simplified down for you, me, or anybody? Now I want you to think about any other text features you can think of. I'll give you about 5 seconds on your own to think about this. Okay, so you can probably think of some on your own. If you have a textbook around you or at school, you can probably see a bunch of different ones present. These include graphic aids, so like charts, bar graphs, pie graphs. You can have maps in there too, just to give you more of a geographic sense of it. Timelines, bulleted lists such as these. A glossary at the end of the book, just to give you almost like a mini dictionary of sorts of some of those bold and italicized words. Your table of contents, both in fiction and in nonfiction. So your table of contents in fiction would be telling you where the chapters are, and your table of contents for nonfiction would be different headings, different subheadings, different places where you can go and find different information. Same thing with index 2, your index being used to go to a specific instance. So if you have so many different references to mitosis in a science book, it's going to show you the page numbers of where those are and perhaps why it's being used in there as well. Sidebars, you typically see those in textbooks just to give you some additional information. So with our language arts textbooks, it'll give you like some additional questions to think about, or maybe some insight into the author. And then captions, we've discussed that before. So captions inside of pictures, just to give you some more insight into that. So I want you to think about what you've learned today about text features, and if you still have any questions about text features, please write that in the margins of your notebook and go ahead and present that to me in class whenever you get the chance. And that is it for today's notes, and I hope that you have learned something more about text features. Again, if you have any questions, please contact me through email or in class. All right, and you guys have a good evening.